Time now for the international papers. Then Elena's with us here on set, and we've been talking about the euro crisis as ever a lot today here on France 24. The possibility of a Tobin tax on financial transactions, backed yesterday by José Manuel Barroso, and the Guardian getting very excited about it.
Yes, they're very keen on this idea. We can see they've even managed to recruit some celebrities to talk about it. They've got the actor Bill Nighy on their front page with a big hurrah for the Robin Hood tax. Now, inside, the Guardian has actually been pushing this idea for some time, and inside they say that now that José Manuel Barroso says that he backs it, it could be in place by 2014 and it could raise 57 billion euros a year. Now, why are they quite so keen on this particular idea? Well, they say it's a fantastic way to raise extra money to bail out those unfortunate poor financial institutions and countries around Europe who are having trouble, and it's a way to make the people who created this crisis pay for it, by which they mean, of course, bankers. They say, of course, it's an idea that's been around for 40 years, originally suggested by an American economist to try and help develop poorer countries in the third world, but now they say it's reached its moment. The people in general are convinced that the financial system is responsible for creating this crisis, including those in power, and they want to see them do something about it. Of course, in order for it to be passed at a European level, there is a problem, which is that the British government would have to agree to it for it to be passed at EU level, and they're extremely strongly opposed. They're worried about competitivity and worried that it could drive financial institutions away from the City of London. But The Guardian says this is rubbish because stamp duty is already charged on all share deals in Britain, and that doesn't seem to have stopped anyone from doing deals in London yet.
If Bill Nighy says it must be a good thing. Election day in Saudi Arabia is a story we were covering a little bit earlier on. The Guardian's looking at the situation for women.
Yeah, if we just stay in the same paper for a minute, they've got a Saudi Arabian female journalist to write them a letter today, and she's talking about the difficulty of women driving again. She's talking about Shaima Justanyeha. She was the woman sentenced to be flogged for driving, who was reprieved yesterday at the last minute by the Saudi king. She says it's an absolute anomaly that this law still exists, and actually there's no theological justification for banning women from driving either. It also causes huge economic problems. If it was scrapped, she says, poorer families across Saudi Arabia could save lots of money that they're now spending on expensive drivers, and huge amounts of women could get into the workforce just because they'd have the physical means to get to a workplace, which could be great for diversifying the Saudi Arabian economy. They say all it would need was a simple declaration from the king, which in the past, over issues like women voting in these municipal elections, seems to have been quite a convenient way of getting hardline clerics to change their minds quite quickly once the king says something. So they're calling on him to try and scrap this law.
Okay, Elena's pulled something completely out of nowhere. This is a story about Bolivia.
Yes, this is in El País, the left-wing Spanish newspaper, which does have quite a strong focus on Latin America. Now, Evo Morales, the Bolivian president, is suffering the worst crisis of his presidency, they say. That's because he agreed to build a Brazilian-backed motorway through an indigenous reserve in the Amazon, which has upset his own core constituencies of indigenous people and environmentalists. They say he's betrayed them. El País has quite a strongly worded editorial about this, which is headlined "Mother Earth is crying." They say that Morales came to power promising to preserve the Amazon environment and the indigenous people. Now he's sold them down the river. They say he's got to get those indigenous people back on board, otherwise his government will have no legitimacy.
And finally, you pulled out an amazing crime story. This is in the British Independent.
This is brilliant. This dates back to 1972, when an escaped prisoner called George Wright boarded a plane in Detroit dressed up as a priest with a revolver hidden in a Bible. He then proceeded to hijack that plane in the name of the Black Liberation Army, fly it to Miami and get $1 million from the FBI to rescue the passengers. He then flew to Algeria and took refuge there. Now, some of his accomplices were hunted down in Paris in the late 70s and arrested, but nothing was ever heard of George Wright again until now. The FBI have found him in a little seaside village about 28 miles from Lisbon, where he's been living for 20 years with his Portuguese wife. Apparently, after 40 years on the run, he did come quietly, and the FBI say that's an example that they can hunt people down, even over decades and huge geographical distances. But it does make you think, doesn't it, that if you manage to evade them for 40 years, maybe they should let him off now.
Very true. Somebody has started work on the film script for that one already,
I'm sure.
Elena, thanks very much. That's Elena with the international papers.